Hello, everybody. My guest today is Ruth Marriott. Ruth is the CEO of A Pup Above, which is a better-for-you, lightly cooked pet food option based here in Austin, Texas. In this conversation, we talked about Ruth's background, being raised in New Orleans. She made her way to Pennsylvania for her undergrad, made her way to Bentonville, Arkansas from there to take a job as an intern and an ops specialist with Walmart. She spent 3 years with Walmart before realizing she wanted to go back to her MBA program project that she did, which was the pet food business. So sort of some shared experience there with my own story. Really enjoyed this conversation with Ruth. We talked about the intertwinement of family and business. Her husband, Javier, also is part of A Pup Above as an executive, and so we talked a lot about that piece of it. We talked about how competitive she is and how that manifests itself in business. We talked about how difficult it is sometimes to turn off your work brain, particularly when you and your spouse are both part of the business. We talked about her background. We talked about the company history and the rebrand they went through, what the COVID era was like, what the state of pet food options are currently, and how that category is expanding. As we always do, we cover some ground here, but really enjoyed this conversation with Ruth. I hope you will as well. All that said, please enjoy this very broad conversation with Ruth Marriott.
In Shanghai. It was a short-term role, so just a few months. But in that role, it was working on the strategy team for new product launches in China. And so we're just looking at like how do consumers shop there? What are they looking for? What are their needs? And I just thought it was really interesting because it was, I mean, I knew it was going to be different from the US, but it was like wildly different. At this time, it was 13 or 14, and shopping on WhatsApp was extremely popular, whereas in the US, or not WhatsApp, WeChat, which is basically the Chinese equivalent of WhatsApp. They would shop on there, they would do customer service on there, like everything was on the phone. Whereas in the US, that just wasn't a thing. US mobile commerce has increased since then, but I was like, wow, this is a huge difference, and it's really interesting. I like getting more into the consumer mindset of what are they looking for. So I went to business school with the goal of going into retail, a more consumer-focused role. I didn't know like I was going to start my own business from that curiosity that kind of got started. But I knew I wanted to do something that was more consumer-facing and getting into the psyche of what someone's looking for.
Yeah, I have a degree in marketing. However, I think my acumen for marketing, particularly today, like with social media marketing and content marketing, is just not. It's not something I'm super interested in my own life as a consumer. So I don't really have good intuition for how to do it professionally.
Yeah.
But in learning marketing and learning how a business goes about building awareness and getting new customers over that hurdle of just buying your product. You realize how many tricks there are behind the scenes that as an uneducated consumer, you just think, oh, I like this product because it looks good and smells good. And you don't realize like, no, they got you.
Yeah.
There's something there that
they've done their research.
They've done their research on
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So you go from Honeywell to MBA program shortly thereafter?
Yeah, so I went to UT Austin for MBA. And while I was there, I interned at Walmart and worked at Walmart after that. So that was kind of the role that was more consumer-facing. But during my time at business school, my now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, we got our dog Lola in 2016. And it was, I grew up with my grandmother had dogs, but I never had dogs directly in the household I was in. So Lola was, the first dog that I was responsible for. And so we got her in 16. And I just had a hard time understanding her food and like what I was feeding her. I've always been that shopper where I like to go to Whole Foods and I like to know kind of that I'm eating better for you items. And when it came to her food, it was just, I thought it was challenging. And I was trying my best to kind of do my homework. And so I started, doing my research, and then I went to some stores. I was like, what do you recommend feeding her? And like, she doesn't like the kibble that her breeder sent her home with. And they gave me some like kibble recommendations, and they also said, well, maybe you should just try raw. It's a fresh food. I took that home, and I was like, this is kind of gross. Like, I don't want to be handling this. And I gave it to Lola, and she didn't even want it. So I was like, it's really not worth the effort. And I was like, why isn't there just a cooked option? Like, that seems very logical, easy to understand. Why wouldn't a dog like it?
Yeah.
And at the time, you wouldn't find a gently cooked option available in pet stores. Maybe in California it existed, but not in Texas. And so I started doing like an entrepreneurial class at UT to sort of explore the idea of creating a food for our dog Lola.
It started as a class project.
Yeah, it started
Love
as a
that.
class project. Yeah. And it was the last semester of business school. And we ended up getting second in this like venture competition where we got, I believe it was $10,000. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I've just been working on this for a few months and got this. So that feels validating.
Yeah.
And then I went to work at Walmart, and it just sort of kept on nagging at me. And so I just was doing more research while I was there. They have, Walmart sells a lot in pet food, and then Tyson's out there as well that does a lot of products for pet food. And
Tyson does.
yeah, they do. They'll send meat for pet food as well.
Okay.
And so I just kept on, working at it. And eventually my husband was like, you're spending, all this time working on this. Why don't you like actually go like do this thing? And so he kind of pushed me to go take the risk to go do it. And eventually we decided that we were gonna go do it. And so this what brought me back to Austin. But my time at Walmart was, helpful because, to your point, like I saw how much research that they put into understanding what consumers are looking for, what they want, how do you merchandise, how do you handle logistics. All of those things winded up being helpful in building out A Pup Above's distribution side on the retail piece. But then after that, moved to Austin to start the company in 2018.
Where were you when you were with Walmart? Were you in Arkansas?
Yeah, I was in Northwest Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where their Bentonville.
That's where their headquarters, is where Bentonville is.
Okay.
Fayetteville is close by.
So you came back to Austin to start A Pup Above.
Yeah,
here.
Austin was like Northwest Arkansas is beautiful, but it's not. It doesn't have the resources that Austin has for starting a business, and Austin is such a dog-centric city.
Sure.
That it made a lot more sense to come back here.
Did you quit the job, move here, start the company, or did you start the company and kind of get it going
no,
first?
I quit the job.
You did?
Yeah.
Clean break.
Yeah,
That's
clean
bold.
break. Yeah, it was
That's a brave
bold.
move.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would do that in retrospect.
In hindsight, yeah, your relationship with risk changes. Once you start something like that and you get it to a point of stability, and then you're looking in the rearview mirror, you're like, oh man.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that was
irresponsible
riskier.
of me.
That was riskier than I thought it
That's
was.
exactly
But
right.
I'm still standing.
And you're still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, there's so many different lanes we could go down there. You started the company with your husband, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, is he still a part of the business?
Yeah, he is.
That's cool. So I definitely want to touch on that, but we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
You started the company as a clean break from leaving what was a stable job and in theory had a good future to it.
Yeah.
What was the tipping point? What was the thing that you finally realized, like, okay, either I have to stop talking about doing this or I just need to do it? What was that tipping point?
Yeah, I thought when I changed industries or type of job, when I was at Honeywell, I was in a job where I would work on a lot of PowerPoints and presentations, and I wanted to get more of like my hands dirty. And so I thought moving into Walmart, I would be getting more of my hands dirty, but it was also a lot of building presentations and corporate, high-level items. And it just became evident that I was ever going to get my hands dirty. The only way you could actually create would be by starting a business. A lot of larger companies, they already know what works. They don't need sweeping innovation. a lot of the times. So that was kind of the realization. I was like, oh, I'm kind of back to where I was. So it didn't really create the change that I thought I was going to create.
So then you realize, okay, my options here are either I get a different job that lets me be a little more hands-on, or I just got to go start this thing that I'm thinking of starting.
Yeah, and the odds I would find another job that let me get more hands-on at a, I would have to go either work for an existing startup or small, medium-sized business that's not, billions of dollars.
Right.
Or could I start my own?
Something similar to my trajectory too was like, you graduate from college, you have it in your head what a good job would look like, what a good career path would look like. You get a job that you think really can point you that direction, and then you spend enough time in it to really understand the ins and outs of it, and you realize like, this isn't at all what I thought it was.
Yeah, and in corporate America, I mean, the small, like junior, like entry-level, mid-level jobs, I mean, you're just not at the level where you can make those exciting decisions. Right. So it's going to take a while to build yourself up to get to that type of role.
Right.
And it makes sense, right? You got to kind of like get a historical track record before you have the rights and to make those big decisions. But if that's what kind of makes you tick, then the only way you get access to those is by starting your own thing.
Right. It's the way to accelerate the timeline where you are making your own decisions that have an impact on the business directly.
Yeah.
You can either spend that time putting in your dues so you can get a position where you can make those changes, or you can just spend all that time doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you own it.
Yeah, that's right. You own it fully.
You don't think of the risk of what if this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you started the business in 2018, right? Mm-hmm. Rebranded it in 2020.
Yeah.
At what point, here we are in 2025, at what point did you, in the early days of starting Live Oak, there was this sort of insecurity that this could all go away tomorrow. We could not get this deal done, and then it's going to be hard to make payroll. Yeah. At what point did you sort of take a breath and realize, okay, we're established, or have you had that point yet?
Yeah, I mean, consumer like trends can change quickly, so I never feel comfortable. I always am competitive to try and aim to stay top of mind. But in terms of paying payroll and feeling like financially like you're sound and you're not working all hours of every day, I think probably started to feel that way probably in 2024 as we were able to start bringing in more experienced leadership into the company.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the thing, is once you start bringing subject matter experts and they can manage their own teams, right? And you're not having to be everywhere, that helps a lot in terms of being able to get some of time back for your personal life, and then the business not running you as much.
Right.
I think that's been important, but I never feel settled when it comes to competition, because you're always going to have competitors, and the trends are always changing. So it's super important to always stay like laser focused there.
Ever evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still have just the one dog?
Lola? Yeah, she's the queen.
You can't add subjects to the queen's team, or what?
I don't know. We travel with her. She goes on trips with us. She goes to work events with us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So how much does that play into your ability to maintain, what was the word you used? Like a subject matter expertise in your industry to notice where the trends are changing? Is it because you're actually actively in pursuit of that for your own pet?
Yeah, so I mean, we are the core consumer, right? Like we view
Lola.
You are
your target market.
Yeah, we are our target market. So we're still at a stage where we can cater to our core consumer and build a business that way. But as we get larger and you're having to add on other consumers or people who may not be the core but are on the periphery, we have to like understand their needs better as well. So it's ever evolving. But we initially did, the product development early on, catered towards Lola and what we wanted for ourselves. We did research that the market was changing and more people were wanting better for you options for their dogs, and the fresh food market has changed drastically since we started. But that was kind of how, with limited resources, that's how we did our initial product development.
Just make it for you.
Yeah, now today we can actually do consumer insight studies and do surveys and collect feedback.
Yeah.
But in the beginning it was just our own preferences.
Right. Okay, so go back. Let's take one step back to talking about the growth of the business, allowing you to bring in people that have subject matter expertise where you can hand things off to them. We had talked about one such position where you've got somebody starting soon that's going to take a lot off your plate. What are the things that, if you're still in your position as, what's your title, CEO? If you're still CEO 5 years from now, what is the thing that you are the best at that you'll maintain doing versus what are the things that you're doing now just out of necessity because you wear a lot of hats?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is I have the vision for where I want the company to go and what the values it stands for and what we're trying to achieve. And so within the CEO role, I need to be making sure that we're hitting those milestones to hit that vision and that strategy. And so like I like branding, I like marketing, but I shouldn't be in the weeds there. I need to be making sure that everyone's working together to achieve the higher level strategy goals. And so that takes a lot of coordination, right? And so if I'm off in the weeds doing some stuff within a function, that kind of detracts from that. And so it's not that I have less work to do, it's just the focus has changed.
Yeah. Is there any piece of the business that you might find yourself in the weeds because it's where you're passionate, where your passion is, or do you want to be inch wide, mile deep in terms of the things that you're overseeing and just sort of be the person that's carrying the flag of culture and values?
Yeah, I think I'll continue to be involved in branding and marketing, but I'm not like executing the day-to-day.
Yeah.
It's more of just being able to say like I'm the champion of like, is this on brand? Are you representing what the brand stands for type of things?
Does it give you any, you may not have this experience and it may be just me, but as you bring on people that are very competent in their lane of the business, do you get any imposter syndrome? Like, well, why am I here then if there's all these people that are doing all the things that are better at it than I'll ever be because they're interested in it? Do you get imposter syndrome at all?
I can see why people get imposter syndrome, but I kind of view my role as I need to set the strategy, and then each person needs to deliver on their functional goals in order to get there. So if you have someone who's, a subject matter expert, in ops or marketing or whatever it is, my job is to keep them also attentive to the bigger picture, right? How are they working with other functions in order to hit these objectives? You can have someone who's so siloed in their specific subject matter or function that they're not thinking about how what they're doing is impacting other parts of the organization.
Making sure they're covering for each other and taking into account.
Or like if you make this decision, it's going to impact this team. It's not just about how it impacts your team.
Right.
And so it's super important that the different functions can work together.
Right.
And not work in silos.
So you had mentioned in the green room, the majority of your business is through retail partners, but you have some direct to consumer that makes up a percentage of your business. Do you focus on both, or do you really focus on one and the other one just sort of becomes if the customer comes to you that way?
So retail's 80% of our business, so we do focus, a lot of our attention goes there. But in today's world, I mean, you have to be digital as well. So we're digital in how we do trainings for employees in stores. We have online training. Of course, we have social media, but we're not really investing in ads to drive people to our website. Most our advertising spend is more focused on the channel that carries 80% of the sales.
Just bringing awareness so when people see it on the shelf, they buy it.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a certain retail strategy? Are you trying to go into big retail? Do you like boutique retail better? Is it a mixture
Yeah,
of
we're
both?
focused on, it's called the pet specialty channel, so it's any pet store that's not Petco, PetSmart.
Yeah.
This is a channel that traditionally has pioneered new brands. It's kind of like what Whole Foods is for the natural channel or for the grocery channel, with launching new better for you brands. They have freezer infrastructure because they already built out the raw category. They're highly focused on education and training because people who come into those stores rely on them for recommendation. Like, my dog is having stomach issues. Can you recommend a food for me to help fix that? That's why people are going in. And so when you're launching a product in a new category, it's been a really good channel for us to then build out that new category and be a new brand.
Is there a place for a company in your space to do both, or is it one of those things where if you're trying to do both, you're not doing either well? Like big box retail, Petco, PetSmart versus the more boutique?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends where you are as a brand and also what you're selling. So to go into a big box or a Petco, PetSmart, you're not going to have employees call people's attention or consumers' attention to your brand. They're not coming in and having those conversations that they would have in these smaller pet stores. So you need to already have a good level of brand awareness, because that consumer you're gonna want them to come in and say, like, I already know I'm looking for this brand. And so then that could require more marketing spend, because you need more brand awareness, because you're just not gonna have those people taking customers to discover your brand in those types of stores. So you're going to need to have a bigger marketing budget, more resources, more promo spend, some way that you're kind of waving your hands to the person in the store to get their attention.
Right.
Whereas the stores we sell in today, because they're very education oriented, they're recommending our product to consumers to help solve the challenges they're having or the help that they need getting help with. So that's part number one is like what's your level of brand awareness and what's your marketing budget, because you're gonna need higher brand awareness and more marketing to go into these bigger box stores. And then the other thing is like, what's the category that you're dealing with? Is it like gently cooked? That's a new emerging category that requires education, because the channel we're in today is gonna be better at championing that versus, big box mass. They're not really in the business of launching new categories. They usually want to kind of stick to stuff that the masses are already, attracted to.
I can see where if I had a dog, it's going to be harder to get somebody to change their buying preference, because you're less likely to experiment with a lot of different kind of dog foods than you would be like potato chips. I'm going to try a different bag of potato chips this time.
Yep.
So you probably have to invest a lot of attention in, like, what's the impetus for somebody to consider a pivot in their dog food selection, and then catching them when they're making that pivot and understanding how they would go about doing research, talking to people who know the space better. You're more likely to go into more of a boutique place.
Yeah, it's like chips, you're not worried, if I switch this brand, like, how's my stomach going to be?
Right.
That's not a key consideration.
For a dog, it's like there's some sensitivity there. You have to be aware of.
Dog food, you typically need to have samples available to order to provide trial, so they can know that their dog will eat it and then will digest it well.
Is that part of what y'all do? Some sort of a sample program?
Yeah. So these stores where they have higher levels of service help with the sampling as well. And so that's a big part of it as well, because we do get a lot of consumers where their dogs are either picky or they have a sensitive stomach, and they need to know before they buy like a 7-pound bag or something like that. They need to know that their dog is going to eat it and that they're going to digest it. And so that's the other thing. Like, you don't go into like a Walmart, for example, and expect to get samples.
Right.
It's just not built for that.
Right. What is the benefit of gently cooked? What categories are there? There's gently cooked, there's raw, there's kibble.
Yeah, so you have kibble, which is dry. You have alternative dry, which is, your air dried or freeze dried, dehydrated. And then you have the wet category, which is where canned food falls underneath that. And then fresh food. And then underneath fresh food is raw and gently cooked.
Gotcha.
There's a number of categories. And then kibble is, like 80% of the total amount of pet food sales. So
80%?
It's a huge percentage. Or it's like 80, 75, and then the rest is wet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you competitive by nature? Just like in your own personal life, are you competitive? You mentioned being competitive.
I grew up playing sports, so like I'm not going to be competitive like with friends, for example. But
yeah.
yeah,
like yes.
yeah.
It's not a downside to be competitive.
But like in sports or in business, you need to be competitive.
Yeah. What sports did you play growing up?
I did all sorts of sports. I did swimming, softball, tennis, track.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you're competitive about now besides business? Are there still things that you're competitive about? Playing board games with your family?
Oh, I don't play board games.
No board games?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I recognize where like it's not healthy to be competitive.
Ah, okay.
Board games is something I stay away from.
Because you're competitive, maybe?
Yes, because I'm competitive and,
Yeah.
it's just not how you make friends if you're
right.
so.
Yeah. Or keep Christmas happy for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't play board games. But I'd like to go running. That's being competitive with myself. You can set goals and be competitive that way. But I like competition. I like constantly like looking at how you can become better.
Yeah. So translating that into business, when you're in a space where you're sort of independently growing, you started the business yourself, you're getting it from 0 to now 6 years in, 7 years in, really trying to expand things. And you're in an industry where there are big private equity backed gorillas in your space. Mm-hmm. Are those companies competitors? Or do you look at them as competitors, as somebody to be jockeyed against, or are they just in a totally different category?
I mean, it depends. It kind of, the answer is like it depends. I mean, do I view Mars as a competitor? No, because they primarily sell kibble in mass stores. Could they become competitive in this channel? Yes. Anyone can come in at any time. Mm-hmm. And so my focus has just always been like, are we resonating with the customer in the way that we should? And is our product quality meeting what they expect? Because at the end of the day, you need to check off like, is my packaging working? Is my pricing competitive? And is my product quality what I say it's going to be? Mm. And as long as you're delivering on those, like you will continue to get repeat business. Because someone can have as much money in the world, to acquire customers, but if you're not delivering on product quality or service, you're just going to have a leaky bucket, and you can continue to spend, but the bucket's like never getting full. Mm-hmm. And so we just focus on the quality and the service because we don't have that big budget to put towards acquiring new customers like they do.
Yeah. There's something to be said too for the funding your growth to just grow as fast as you can for growth's sake doesn't really put down as deep a roots.
No, it does not.
So it's a little harder to have stability and predictability over time.
Yeah. You want to know that the customers you're getting are going to stick around.
Right.
If you're growing at all costs, but you're so focused on growing and getting in customers and you're not focused on retaining them, and that money runs out, you're going to be in a tough spot.
You're constantly on that treadmill of trying to raise so you can continue growing, so you can raise so you can continue growing.
Yeah, and the bucket's never getting full.
That's a tough treadmill to get off of when you're there.
It is, yep.
Yeah. What would you do if you weren't doing this? You quit your job tomorrow. Now all of a sudden, dog food is solved, there's one brand that everybody goes to, and now you got to do something else. What would you do?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay, we'll come back to it.
If I was financially independent, I would just spend time with our daughter and take my time. Yeah.
How old's your daughter?
She's 3.
3 years old.
Yeah.
Any more in the future?
TBD.
TBD.
Yeah.
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 What's your husband's name?
Javier.
Javier. Tell me about when I was watching a promo video that y'all had on the internet
Yeah.
that you probably filmed, a year or two ago, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was you and your husband talking about kind of what led to starting the business and your roles within the business. And I chuckled to myself thinking, if I were to have started Live Oak with Ashton, my wife, and we both had active roles in the business,
Yeah.
I don't know that we would do a good job keeping separation between home life and work life. It's hard for me already to turn off my work brain.
Yeah.
How in the world do you manage that when you've got a business you're trying to grow and a family that you're growing? And
Try and turn off the work brain.
yeah, do you have methods that you've had to try to employ to make it work on purpose, or have you just always been able to make it work?
I don't think we turn off our work brain, which
You don't?
is no. It's a challenge. I mean, we've tried. I don't have an effective method.
Yeah.
So it's just more like if we're spending time with our daughter, that kind of helps us turn off our work brain because you're taking her to activities and stuff that is non-work related. Otherwise, it is hard to turn off the work brain when the person you're sitting next to is, you've already spent like the whole day with them on work-related stuff.
Yeah. Do you find yourself after hours talking about work challenges and have to go, hey, we got to stop talking about this. This can wait until tomorrow.
Yes, that happens. Yeah.
It's hard when you take ownership in the business. I mean, literally owning the business is part of it, but also just you feel a sense of responsibility to making sure that it continues to go the way you want it to go.
Yeah.
That's coming from your heart, It's not as much like working a job as much as it is, this is a thing that you've got your name on,
Yeah.
So just by nature, it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah.
But if your spouse is also doing that and you're in the same house interacting with each other, it has extra layers of challenge, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it does. But the alternative is, I talk to entrepreneurs where it can feel lonely that your spouse doesn't understand what you're kind of going through. So, the grass is always greener.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're working with your spouse, they're obviously going to be your reliable partner in the business, or they should be, in theory. So that's the other thing, is you have someone who's kind of in it with you and has a shared experience.
Yeah. What role does Javier play?
He manages the sales side for the retail business.
Was that always his role? Sales?
He's worn several hats. I mean, it's as we've grown as a business, that's kind of where his focus has narrowed into. We're very different personalities. He's very extroverted. I'm more introverted. I don't enjoy sales, but obviously sales is a very important piece of the business.
Yeah, you're selling right now. You're doing fine.
Yeah, thank you. And so that's just kind of the area where he thrives and enjoys to spend his time. And so he's done a good job at it. And so it's also like an area where, like, because we know our different like strengths and skill sets, like that's where he gets to kind of run the business, and then I'm focused on the strategy side and sort of integrating the different functions of the business, which not everyone likes that either. So we wind up complementing each other.
Yeah. I would venture a guess that there are less couples that start businesses that do it successfully than there are people that start businesses together and go, no way, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's almost like people starting a business with their friend, right? Like, is that bond going to be stronger than a wife-husband bond? In most cases, I would guess no. So there's pros and cons, but we've been very vigilant about, like, these are the lanes that we run or we drive in. So there's clear roles and responsibilities. I think things get messy when there's not clear roles and responsibilities. Yeah. And then you're kind of pointing fingers like this, right? And then,
probably helps if your lanes are not even adjacent to each other too, where there's not going to be things that overlap each other very often.
Yeah, you just need to respect the lane that they control, just like you would for someone who's not your spouse, right?
Right. Did you have mentors that you looked up to that had started businesses before, or was that just like a thing that occurred to you, hey, I may want to start a business one day? Did you have an example of somebody who was in your life that had done that before?
Yeah, my grandparents actually each had their own business when I was growing up. So my grandfather, I grew up in New Orleans, so my grandfather actually had a bar called Top of the Mart.
Nice.
In New Orleans is a bar on, I believe, is the 32nd floor, so it's the top of a skyscraper downtown, and it would revolve every hour, so it would actually spin.
Oh, cool.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, so he built that business, and then my grandmother, she ran a aquatics program and had a year-round swim team, and so that was the business. And especially like, you know, my grandmother, she went to college, I think, in the 40s, so a woman from that time period, it's less conventional.
When women were not really going to college that often.
Yeah, or having their own business.
Yeah.
So I grew up like going to their offices and stuff as a kid. But they're very different businesses from what A Pup Above is.
Are either of them still around?
No, they've
both passed?
Yeah, they grew old and passed away.
Yeah. Did either of them get to see you start a business?
No. No.
Is it mom's parents or is that dad's parents?
It's my dad's parents.
Dad's parents.
Yeah. My mom's parents, I didn't get to know. They passed away earlier. But my dad's parents, they didn't quite, they lived a long life, they didn't quite get there. But my grandmother was a huge dog person, always had 4 Scottish Terriers.
4 Scottish Terriers. It's a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy. She would put them in like dog shows. She was obsessed. So she was kind of my introduction into the dog world.
Which of your parents do you favor? Which are you more like, your dad or your mom?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
At all?
Do most people have a definitive answer for that?
I've only asked that question a couple of times, but I always get an interesting answer. And there's usually like a pause where somebody will have to think, I wonder where I am like my mom or my dad.
I think
Is
somewhere in the middle. But
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Was your dad more likely to start a business or your mom more likely to start a business?
I guess my mom is what I would say. I mean, my dad was a retired doctor, so just a whole different
personality
skill set.
altogether.
Yeah.
You had mentioned before there was a rebrand that the company used to be called Grocery Pup.
Yeah, so
right?
We started out as Grocery Pup. The idea was you go to the grocery store to buy your fresh groceries. So this would be like a brand where you could, buy all your dogs like fresh goods. But pet stores didn't like it since they view grocery stores as competitors. And so it winded up really becoming an issue to where pet stores would say, like, I love your product, but I'm not bringing it in because I refuse to carry a brand with your name. So we realized that if we were going to have success, we were going to have to rebrand. And it ended up being a good thing because we were able to rebrand A Pup Above as a much stronger name, and we were able to put our dog Lola as the brand hero. So she's the logo. She's a miniature husky.
That's her, right?
Pomsky. Yeah, that's Lola.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like she's the one who drives like the quality of the products that we make, and is kind of the North Star. Like, you're not gonna create a mediocre product because it would disappoint her.
Yeah.
So it ended up being for the better, but that rebrand in 2020 was really crucial for the success of the company, because even though we didn't change the formulations, the packaging and the brand name, everything really started clicking once that change went into effect.
It removed an obstacle for
removed
retail specifically.
Yeah, obstacle.
How'd you land on
I think the brand also just resonated a lot more with consumers too.
How did you land on the name A Pup Above? What were the other contenders? Do you remember?
I don't remember. They were all quite bad. There was the only one that stood out.
That's why I asked, because I remember the things we were thinking about calling our business, and I look back like, man, I'm so glad.
Oh, I remember
I'm
Conscious
so glad the domain
Pup.
name wasn't available for that stupid name.
Conscious Pup. That was it.
That's a good one.
And then I realized not enough people, like no one could reliably spell conscious. It was too hard.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, C-O-N. what, SCIOUS? Is that right?
I think so.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I like A Pup Above. That's a cool name.
Thank you.
And you did that in 2020.
Yeah.
Tell me about 2020 for your business. All right, so put yourself in the Ruth's mindset of March 2020. So coronavirus is now in the news, but it's, starting to show up on our shores.
Yeah.
And now, late March, early April hits, and it's here.
Yeah, that was right around the time when we were, the rebrand launched, I believe, in May or June.
Okay.
So the benefit was we weren't really in that many stores when we did the rebrand launch. I think we were in, maybe like 70 doors at that time. And so what winded up happening is we were, despite coronavirus going on, we were still able to open up a lot of accounts. And maybe that was just a byproduct of being based in Texas, but even stores in California, we were able to open up. I think a lot of brands also just a lot of their sales teams were like at home. They couldn't go out in the field, so maybe there was some benefit to that as well.
Maybe you had an
But
advantage.
we just didn't see any headwinds. We just saw really good momentum after the brand was launched because, like you said, it removed a big obstacle that we had. And so the growth we saw after launching A Pup Above, it was each year it's been tremendous growth. Yeah.
So was there ever a point in 2020 where you were worried about the business, or did you have a good feel
we
that-
were worried like when coronavirus hit and we hadn't rebranded, and it's like, okay, what is this gonna do?
Yeah.
But then once the A Pup Above hit the market, we started seeing the response. That kind of took that piece away.
Yeah. When did the rebrand launch that year?
It was ready in May, so it started like hitting stores in the summer.
So it was right after lockdowns.
Yeah.
I wonder if that actually benefited you, because you have people now spending more time with their pets at home.
Yeah, people were getting more pets. The pet food space in general really thrived during that time as pet ownership increased. So it was a really good time for the pet food industry.
Yeah.
Now things have sort of like level set, kind of like that spike has, it's gone back down to what would be normal expectations, I would say.
Sure.
But during that time, it was really strong growth for the industry.
Yeah. So you were just kind of right place, right time, and you were rebuilding the surfboard to catch the wave as it was coming.
Yeah, and pet stores, they stayed open because they were considered, like grocery stores.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It would have been essential.
Yeah, they were essential. So, and like I said, we were so small at the time, we just saw upside. We didn't see any headwinds from that.
That's cool. It's obviously that's not everybody's story for how 2020 went for them.
Yeah.
But we were kind of in a similar position. Businesses that have never worked remotely, now all of a sudden you got to figure out how to work remotely or you can't stay in business, and IT is a central theme of that. So we were right place, right time too. But if nothing else gives you gratitude for what you went through, we had a good version of 2020.
Yeah.
If you're sitting here 5 years from now and the business has done a job that you would consider successful, like the business is successful for the last 5 years, what are the hallmarks of that success for you? It can't just be growth, right?
No, we started the company because we wanted to see like change and also just improvement in the quality of pet food available. So, one of the, disturbing things is when you do research, like what goes into feed. So we make human grade dog food, but there's also feed grade food, which is what animals typically eat. There's a lot of stuff that's allowed to go in there that frankly just shouldn't be. Like the vegetables are too exposed to pesticides, can't feed those to humans, put them into feed. The animal got sick and died, can't feed that to humans, put it into feed, despite all the medication that might have been provided to them. And so it's a very like unclean food system. And so by making fresh food a bigger category and creating more demand around cleaner foods, our hope is that more other brands want to participate, even those bigger brands, which is what you see on the human food side too, right? Like as more consumers have started to say, yeah, like this is like a bit more in cost, but like this is what I want. You've seen a lot of change happen in the food space, the human food space, the past 10, 15 years, and better for you options. I mean, now Walmart carries, like so many more better for you brands than they did 10 years ago, because that's what consumers are looking for, and it's become more mass. It's no longer just relegated to the natural channel. And so that's the hope too with pet food, is that you can create that kind of swell of change by offering products that are cleaner, but also things that meet what people are looking for.
Yeah.
So that's what we would hope, and we've seen a lot of change in the space since we started in 2016. Like I said, you wouldn't find gently cooked in stores. Farmer's Dog, I don't believe, had even started at that time. And people would tell us, I don't understand why you're making like human grade food. Dogs don't eat human food. And you would say, well, like, what are they eating then?
Yeah.
But it was just a common response. And now, the gently cooked category is a several billion-dollar category, whereas in 2016 it was, pretty close to zero. And people don't ask that question anymore, because fresh food's the fastest growing category in dog food. So over a short period of time, it's changed rapidly. And so our hope is that the change continues to occur, because it's not appropriate that brands can source these types of ingredients and then market on their bags, that there's something cleaner and fresher than what they are.
Right. Well, you see right now, there's such there is so much noise around what we eat and the result that it has on our physicality and health and longevity and health span and all those things.
Yeah.
So it would stand to reason that all of that awareness going to the products that we're consuming would carry over into the products that our pets are consuming.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we interacted with you all, looking at your website and seeing human grade food. Yeah, obviously that should be a thing for pets. It's one of those things that once you see it and you recognize, well, that would be better for that animal, so they would be healthier, they would be more vibrant, they would live longer, and for most people that have pets, that's part of their family, so of course they would feed them healthier food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, most people don't realize that kibble is as processed as it is. I mean, the equipment that makes kibble originated out of the equipment that makes cereal, so it literally just spits out these, pellets. And then in order to shape the kibble, you have to have dough, so there's a lot of carbs that have to go into it. And then it's going through high heat extrusion. And so it's like the equivalent of feeding your dog kind of potato chips every day, every meal.
Every meal, every day.
And that's just really taxing on your digestive system. It means you're not absorbing a lot of the nutrients that they say are even in there.
Yeah.
Or at least the whole food nutrients. And so people are realizing that maybe it doesn't make sense to be, like, I thought that kibble was just, that's what dog food was, so I didn't really question it. Now they're realizing, okay, kibble's that's not what dog food has to be. And so they're starting to move to these better for you, fresher food options.
Yeah. That seems obvious that it should have happened long ago, you would think.
I think people just mentally, they're like, kibble is dog food, so I don't question it.
Kibble equals dog food.
Yeah, and then my vet tells me I need to feed it, so I'm going to feed it. And so I haven't really questioned it. But now with internet and, people having, more access to information and questioning their own diets, you see it carrying over to the pet food space.
Makes total sense that would be the case.
Yeah.
There's an old saying, if you carry your own products or you use your own products, the saying is you should eat your own dog food. You ever heard that saying?
Yeah.
Have you ever eaten your own dog food?
Yeah, I have.
You have? Is it good?
No. It's formulated for dogs. So we have like liver and organ meat. Dogs love it. Like they love organ meat and liver because it's stinky, and it's great that they eat it because it's something that gets discarded in human food.
Sure.
And it's really healthy for them. but for human palate, or like, it's
Yeah.
not.
You're probably not seasoning the dog food, right?
No, we don't season it either. No.
Oh, I thought I would ask that one just to be fun. All right, so we're about out of time, but I want to ask you this question because I ask everybody. We're here in January 2025. There's no shortage of doom and gloom stories. There's no shortage of happy-go-lucky stories about the direction we're going. But when you see your business, your family, the future that you're trying to architect for both, what makes you optimistic? What makes you optimistic that we're going to end up in a place that you would say this is where we wanted to end up?
Both business-wise and personally?
You pick.
Okay.
What makes you optimistic about the future, Ruth?
I guess I was optimistic that I could quit my job and start a business and be successful. So I guess I have
Or
like
you were
rose.
naive.
Yeah. So I've got rose-tinted lenses to begin with. But, there is a lot of, news that can get you down, that you see a lot during the day, but we really just focus on like what can we control and what are the things we can't control. It's a common saying, but it's really super important just to dial into like, what do I have within my control? And so part of that is, right, our daughter, how we raise her, that's fully within our control. And then on the business side too, we just have to focus on the things we control. I can't control the external factors. Yes, so we need to pay attention to consumers and what they want. But I can't control if, this vendor goes out of business or whatever it is. And so as long as we control the things we can control and stay close to what the consumer wants, I'm optimistic that we'll continue to make good progress and change. But if we don't pay attention to what the consumer wants and we're distracted by the things we can't control, then I think that it's harder to have good fortune.
It's a great answer. Play the hand you're dealt.
Play the hand you're dealt, Yep. And accept the things you can't control.
That's great. That's the old school prayer of help me accept the things I can't control and control the things I can and be wise enough to know which is which.
Yeah, it's an old saying that I think is very important.
It's true.
Yeah.
Thanks for making time for this. Anything
thank you.
else you want to discuss while you're here?
No,
We just
I
did
appreciate
over an
the
hour.
time. Yeah.
Went by quick.
Yeah, it did go by quickly.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making the time for it. I really do appreciate
thank
it. On a
you. This was
cold,
fun.
wet winter day,
Yep.
you made the trip out to Bastrop County, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.